Hello, everyone. This is Eos, and I'm happy to be here with all of you. Today, I'll be talking more about the course itself, the structure of the course, and how I envision it. And I'll start with just the syllabus running over it. And so I'll share my screen right now. And so this is a class on contemporary issues, psychology, and personal growth. This is offered by the Department of Interdisciplinary Studies at the School of Humanities. We will be meeting either on Tuesday and Thursday from 5 to 6 p.m. or on Wednesday and Friday at 9 to 10 a.m. And this is generally the description of the course. We're looking at psychology and personal growth. What does it mean for self-help? And you've probably heard a lot about self-help. And what we're doing here is to see this from a different light. And I'd like to open up our understanding of what it means for self-help. Because most people think it's just about the self, but no, it's not. We will be talking about many different aspects of it. And these are really the most important things. The first thing is the learning outcomes. The first learning outcome is really outcome for knowledge. What do I want you to know? I want you to know how the four different modules, and we'll be talking about them more later, affect your personal growth or affect people's growth in general. That's knowledge. The second is more reflective. It's more about skills that you get these knowledge and then you apply them to you. You look at your own growth. You look at your own trajectory. You look at your own opportunities and see what you can do. And then lastly is an active part to it, that you can design solutions, that you can design your life in a way, having known these things. And so these are the learning outcomes. And we'll start with the last one because really your final project here is to create a self-help manual. Think of it as a self-help book that you wrote for yourself because only you will be doing that for yourself. Only you can make the best self-help book for yourself. And so that's the final project. Take everything that you will learn in this class and create solutions for yourself. Think of that. That will be your final project. Now, in terms of the courses, we will have 4 modules. And I've been very careful. I've been very methodical and intentional with providing you with the best learning experiences. Because I think this is very important, that you get the best learning experiences. Number one is that it's challenging enough, but it doesn't cause unnecessary stress. Because where we are right now, it's already very stressful. Okay. So here we have module 0, which is just preliminary things. You would have had done introductions already. There was a quiz on the syllabus itself. So just work on those things. And what we see here is that whenever I say day 1, it means the Tuesday or the Wednesday of that week. And day 2 refers to the Thursday or the Friday. And these are the meeting times that we have. We will be meeting during the first Thursday or Friday of the intersession. So I'll be seeing you then. And here's my suggestion that you block off 2 to 3 hours at the start of the week. So that's the first half for the asynchronous modules. And then come to the synchronous class, which is just 1 hour on a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And then you block off another 2 to 3 hours on a Wednesday or a Thursday. And then you come to the synchronous class, which is on Thursday or Friday. And then use the Friday to have a use that for your activity. You might write an essay, or you might write a, you might have a podcast. So if you were to compute these, so it's 2 to 3 plus 1 plus 2 to 3 plus 1 plus 2 to 3. That will be around 9 to 11 hours a week. You might say, oh wow, that's too much. You think it's too much if you think of it as 9 to 10 hours straight. But if a week has 168 hours, you only need to work for this class for less than 10% of that week. Less than 10% of that week. However, I do believe that if you put enough attention to this class, you will reap a lot of benefits. Think of this class as a time for you to pay attention to yourself, to work on yourself. So give it your all, those few moments that that I'm asking of you. There will be also a social experiment, and you'll see it more in another part of this introduction. The first module is about identity. So we're starting with the self. We're starting with the good life. So the good life and your identity. That's where we start. We start from Aristotle, maybe go to Jesus, and then go at the very end of it's positive psychology, looking at that history. We never really think of self-help as something that's historical, but that's something that I'll emphasize, that it's a historical thing. And it's also historically contingent, and you'll learn more what that means. The next is we will talk about personal and professional identities. And here you will have a reading, and there's a practical activity. So these practical activities, you gain points for them. So this is when you will be writing a resume or a curriculum vitae. And I'll be telling you more about how to write them, what's the best way of doing them, and so on. I want this class to be as practical as possible for you. And so I'm trying to make all of these different opportunities for you to enjoy and to really gain as much from the class. And then, as I said, on Fridays, you can do the essay activity, the podcast activity. And here, you're being asked, what is your identity? What is your definition of the good life? And be sure to include ideas from our discussion. And for you to remember it, the deadlines are usually on Mondays, unless otherwise stated. So the deadline here, for example, is the 12th of June. I know that we are almost allergic to the word deadline, but it's necessary. So please, just I'm not asking a lot from you. The essay should be around 500 to 700 words. Not really a lot. So just give it time. Just uh just submit it during that time, and I'll be hopefully checking it in time as well. The next part of it would be habits and stresses. So what's the good and the bad to it? And here again, you have another uh, activity, but this is more fun. It's not just an essay. It's a 500 to 700 word advice column. Think of yourself as writing in a newspaper, and someone asked for advice in terms of a stress that they were having, a psychological injury, or a bad habit. And you tell them, what's the advice? Having learned the things from this class, what can we do? And a bonus points will be given to those who share this in public. Because I'd want you to think about how can more people benefit from the things that you learn from this class. Now, this again is how we usually think of self-help. We usually think of self-help as something that we do. But then we must also remember that self-help is about what we do with others as well. And so here we look at social capital. And you might be scratching your head. What the hell is social capital? We're going to talk about that. What does it mean to have networks and relationships? And what does that mean for your personal growth and personal flourishing? Next is, and this is really something that I hope will interest you, we'll talk about intimacy. We'll talk about relationships. We'll even talk about sex and infidelity. And why is this important? I think this is important because this is a taboo topic that we think is not necessary to be talked about. But then we must talk about it because that's part of our flourishing. To be intimate with someone or some people is important. What does intimacy mean for you? What does sex mean for you? And if we don't talk about this, where will you get the information? So we will be talking about this. We'll look at different videos and so on. And here, the Friday activity would be a podcast. You'll do a 10-minute interview with a friend, a partner, a professor, a loved one, either on social capital and how they leverage it, or about their thoughts on intimacy and a mature and loving relationship. At the end of this podcast, be sure to have a 5-minute monologue in a way that integrates your understanding from what they said to what we talked about in class. And then the last module is really something you don't think about when you think about self-help. We're going to look at organizations. We're going to look at institutions. The first sub-module here is a sub-module on questioning, is your personal mental health an institutional concern? Should we as an organization be concerned about your personal mental health? We should think about that. The next part is about slavery and freedom. When we talk about slavery, we think of, the ancient Egyptians, maybe. Would think of African Americans and their history of slavery. But we can also think of it as something that's personal. What are things that enslave us? What are bad habits that we are prone to and that keep us unfree? But then also, how does this experience of slavery is not just an experience that I have, but it's a communal experience. Whether that's through colonization, whether that's through racism, sexism, anti-Asian American hate. So we'll talk about that and we'll have some reflection time for us. And the final activity is a personal self-help manual. And think of it again with the end in mind. The thing that we want to do at the end is to create this personal self-help manual. And I'll leave it up to you how you want to do it. You can create a 2-page infographic, 2,000-word essay, an introduction to a book that you plan to do, a book cover with the table of contents and some summary of the different chapters. Let your imagination grow. But it's important that you incorporate the things that we talk about in class in the insights that you gain that are important to you from this class. And so really, those are the things. You have Canvas quizzes and checks for understanding. I put them at 30%, because it's important to just be doing it steadily. Just be doing it steadily. You have 2 essays that are 10% each. You have a podcast activity that's around 20%. And then the self-help manual, which is another 20%. These are important activities, and I'd like us to to think about this. And I put some points in terms of course participation. And how this will happen is at the end of the course or at the end of the class, given class, I'll ask those who recited to say +1 in the chat so that I know who uh, have spoken during the class. And I will encourage you to speak during the class, even if you are uncomfortable with it. I will almost force you to speak up. I hate speaking up in class, but it's necessary. It's good practice, especially if you go on to fields where you have to do a lot of meetings. It's necessary for you to speak up. And if you do not share your insights, you are preventing people from gaining your insights. It's actually a disservice to not be sharing those insights. So these are just some rubrics, and I hope you look at them. The required readings and the suggested readings, these are, I think, really good readings to be doing. The grading system, of course, will be here. The grading system as well is more in terms of points. So these are the different points that you will be receiving for your essays. The structure of the class is that we will have the asynchronous content, and then there will be readings, materials, and developmental activities for it. And most things have points so that you're really encouraged to do it. And although you're not required to do the asynchronous content in advance of the synchronous sessions, I would highly, highly encourage you that you go through them before the class. And really, it's just what I usually say to my friends, usually say to my students, 90% of life is showing up. You don't have to work excellently. You don't have to be the best person. You just have to show up, be on your desk, and do what you're supposed to be doing. Next would be for synchronous classes. I envision the synchronous classes to foster our community, to let me get to know you more, and for you to get to know me more as well. And for us to gain insights from the spontaneous sharing. So it's not about new content. It's about really getting insights from the conversation. It's a deepening in a way of the things that we talk about. So often we will start with a quick recap of the key ideas. Maybe I'll ask you, maybe I'll share what the key ideas are. And then we will go into breakout rooms. Each group will need to assign a scribe to take note of ideas. And then the different groups will come back to the clash. And then the scribe will write on the chat their discussion. Maybe 2 or 3 bullet points. Not very long. Just write in the chat. What did you discuss? And then I only require your attention for 1 hour. So please be in the Zoom group. I have a tendency to ask members of the group to share what they put in the chat. So be there. There is a participation component to the course. So please speak up at least once during the week. That's an expectation that I have. Speak up at least once during the week. It's not necessary to always speak up every session, but at least once during the week. And I understand the broadband issues in the Philippines, so I will not take offense with people having their cameras turned off. I will request, though, that we turn it on at the beginning and at the end, just to say hi to each other, just to be familiar with each other. And if you want me to write you a recommendation letter in the future, it would be good to associate a face with a name. And so it would be very, very helpful if you can add a photo to your Zoom account. And it's also helpful for me to remember that I'm not just speaking to empty boxes to see your face there. So we will be talking about some difficult conversations, or we will be having some difficult conversations, talking about topics like sex, injustice, mental health, and stresses. So my expectation is really just confidentiality with the things we talk about, openness to new ideas and to different ways of thinking about things, and really genuinely listening to others. There will be discussion boards. I know that people have not felt easy or did not like discussion boards from before. To this end, we'll keep discussion boards short. Really just tell me, what is it that you think? 3 sentences. Can even give 1 sentence. You get a point in the discussion board just by posting it, just by posting something. Of course, something sensible, but just by posting something, you get a point. That's it. And then just communication and feedback. Please let me know how this is for you. I want to be as flexible as possible. We might change things as they go along. Let me know. I'll be having a feedback by the end of the first week. So I'll ask you how this is going and what we can do to improve it. And the thing is, for me, I want it to be appropriately challenging. I want it to be intellectually insightful for you and also practically useful. So that those are things we must remember. And here are my office hours on Wednesday and Friday before class. That's my office. Those are my office hours. And please send me an email if you want to chat during that time, or even outside that time. We'll find time. Okay. Now, those were the things for the class. I'm a very visual person, so I'd like to talk about how I see the class visually. So I'm just sharing my screen here. So think of the class as starting with you. And you have an identity. You have an identity. And this identity is tied to something that's social. So the social will show you the sense of the good life. What we think of as good life is not just determined by you. It's something that affects you and your identity. So think of it. So this is the first week. The second week is again still about you. And you have different habits, both positive and negative. And then these habits will interact with things from outside. So these are your stresses, your past injuries, maybe physical, maybe psychological, and also things that are more external, like the current pandemic. And so these habits will have to respond to these things. And these things like stresses, past injuries, and habits will affect and external things will affect your habits. For example, if you feel depressed or if you feel lonely, that will affect your habits. That will affect your actions. Because really, habits are just repeated actions. And this, friends, would be week 2. And then it's not just about you here. It's also about your connection with other people. And so the you here will always be tied to your social networks. So you can have a you that's here, and this you will be tied to social networks. Social networks. Social networks. And you might have these social networks that know each other and that have their own social networks as well. Then you might have different groups of people who have their own social networks, and you're part of that clique as well. And then you have social networks where they're more closed and you're the only connection. So this is your social network. And this you also, you work with a significant other. Or maybe in the future, you will work with a significant other or a significant community. And this is really the basis of intimacy. Those you consider significant. Here, the people you have would be with the social network, you will have people who are like you. Some of them will also be significant for you. So this intimacy also ties with your social network because some of the people in your social network you'll be more intimate with. And what are different components of intimacy? You have physical intimacy, so sex, fidelity, and even infidelity. And this, dear friends, would be week 3 of our class. And all of these things, they all happen. They all happen within different organizational and institutional areas. What are institutions? School, community, family, city, society. These are different institutions. And these things, they affect you, they affect your growth, they affect your living. And so, how do these things, how do organizational systems, for example, affect your growth, affect your development? That's going to be week 4. And so I hope this gives you a roadmap of how to understand what we will be going through. And really, this class, if you're asked, what is this class all about? It's about flourishing and development. It's about you. It goes back to you. You will make the most out of this class. I will present you with different activities, with different opportunities. But only you can make the most out of this class. And I hope you will. That's it for now. I'm excited for this intersession and I look forward to more things with you. Take care, everyone.